Lori here. I'm here today to do the Artsy Reader Girl Top 10 Tuesday. Normally when I do these posts, they always coordinate. So normally when you watch my video and read my blog post, they are totally the same. This is going to be a little bit different because I had to really think about books that pulled me out of a reading slump because honestly, I don't normally get into a reading slump. Like it's really like I'm always reading something. There's never a time that I'm not reading something, so it's really kind of hard for me to be in a reading slump. I sometimes I get like a book hangover and I just read something kind of a different genre. So the books on my blog post are all like books that I thought were fast-paced, engaging, and they were just really, really easy to go to. But in this video, I'm just going to talk about type of books that might already be on your TBR that you might want to pick up. So the first category I'm going to talk about is relive old favorites. This is something I really want to do more often, especially when I physically read books, because often when I re-experience old favorites, it's always through listening. Just because since I became a book reviewer and a book blogger, I have to read a lot more newer physical books than normal. So I often delegate listening because you have physical books that aren't out as ebooks yet, or listening things yet because you're reading them so early. So re-listening often happens a lot. But recently, I've learned that kind of physically rereading old favorite might just activate and kind of get you out of a reading slump. And the ones I put in my blog post was Harry Potter, and that's like a go-to favorite. If you have read Harry Potter and like completed the series, sometimes just going back to your favorite book. For me, it's probably book 3 or book 1 or book 7. Those are my 3 favorites. Kind of just activates my reading, and I'm like, oh, I really like. So sometimes just going back to old favorites. Sometimes I'll read like a really quick romance book that I really liked, like Lola and the Boy Next Door or Dare You To by Katie McGarry. Those are a couple other ones I put on the list just because they're really like self-contained stories. So re-listen to old favorites is definitely something I recommend if you're really in a reading slump, because sometimes just like meeting old characters or going back to an old plot that you kind of know already is kind of nice. And reliving old favorites, you always notice things that you never noticed before. So again, revisiting old favorites is a type of book I recommend that you use when you're stuck in a reading slump. I did say it's sometimes hard for me. Like, I rarely get into a reading slump, but what I often does happen is if I'm reading like a really long book, this happens a lot in the summer because I want to read quick, fast books in the summer just so I could read more. This happened a lot when I was in college too, because I knew that come September and eventually when I have a full-time teaching job, it's going to be harder for me to read the quantity of books that I want to read. So sometimes after I read a couple of really long books, I'm just kind of burnt out from high fantasy. So I will either read like a short book, like a short romance, and I'll kind of switch the genre. So for me, I think it's just finding books that are shorter in length to what you just read, or to really like switch your genre. Like if you've been reading a lot of fantasy, maybe read a contemporary. If you've been reading a lot of contemporary, maybe you read a lighter fantasy. So just kind of like find something that's kind of different from what you've been reading if you're kind of burnt out. I know that happened to me a couple of months ago. I was reading a lot of fantasy and I just was kind of over it. And I was like, you know what? I need something new. And then I picked up contemporaries and it was all good. So if you kind of see you're getting bored with a genre, this happens with book bloggers that I know. If you have to read a lot of things that come out in a certain month, you just kind of get bored of the genre, then kind of read something different. And what I've been doing is I've been reading books that have been on my TBR for a while, and I just kind of pick them up, and that's what I've been doing to kind of balance out my review books as well. So definitely kind of switch your genre up and read something different. Or if you're reading really, really massive books, read shorter books. I have a lot of like quicker contemporaries or quicker middle grades on my shelves that I've been dying to get into because they're so quick. So again, that's my next tip. Either switch your genre or read a book that is much shorter than what you have been reading. Next tip that I find is a lot of people, I normally adore slow burn stories, and I rarely ever don't like them. But sometimes if I've been reading a bunch of those, like I remember, I think it was when I was reading Ash Princess. I read Ash Princess and I read something else, and both back to back they were like really, really slow burns. And that was like a bad decision for me because by the end of it I was like, oh my god, I never want to read another slow burn book again. So I often just pick up a quick pace book. And for me, a quick pace book is either like a middle grade novel or a mystery. Something that just is like um just quick. And I love mysteries. I have a couple on my shelves too, but again, those just make me want to read faster and they want to make me read them quickly. And I always, if I'm really struggling, I often will go back to the Hannah Swanson series and read a book from that, but just because they're really, really fast paced. But again, just like read something that you think is quick paced. Everyone's quick paced books are different. Sometimes I find romance really quick paced. Sometimes I find mysteries. But normally, if I'm going to pick something that's really, really fast paced, I pick up a fast paced mystery to get me out of my reading slump or to motivate me to read more. Another one of my tips is to go back to an author that I haven't read a lot of, and I've been doing that a lot this year. I've been reading a lot more Casey West and Morgan Matson. I've been rereading a lot of her books, but just go back to a book author that I really like and have not read more from. I still have a lot of Casey West books that I haven't read, but just go back to those books and like kind of dive back into those books that you wanted to read, because sometimes it's not the same story, but the writing style is really, really similar. And especially if you're doing that with like Morgan Matson, you do see characters, or do Casey West. It's like a very, very formulaic book. So either I'll go back to like an author that I'm familiar with the writing and I just like, or I'll go back to a series that, just a series that like they're connected, like the Pushing the Limits series or the Matson verse. Something where even though it's not old story to me, I still get throwbacks to other characters. And that might pull me out of a reading slump because it inspires me to see what those callbacks are. So that's another thing. Revisit revisit one of your favorite authors' newer works or older works, as the case may be. So that's another one of my tips and tricks. My last tip and trick is specifically after like conferences or cons that I go to, and that's just pick the book you want to read. Pick your highly anticipated book that you want to read, even if it comes out so many months down the line. Because that's happened to me. I really wanted to read Wicked King, and I kept saying, oh no, you gotta wait until January. I didn't have to wait until January. I could have just read it now. Now it's like one less thing I have to worry about. I have my review out, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's especially, I say, for book reviewers, like even if stuff comes out so later, or even if you go to conventions and you have a book that comes out in like January and it's May, you want to read it. Prep your review. As a book blogger, I prep my reviews 9 months in. If I read a book really early, like I just set up my Wicked King review for January, great. And when January comes and I want to reread it, I'll re-look through my review, I'll add any stuff, and I'll post it. So I just think that like pick what you want to read, and that's something that I think we should all do. But yeah, so again, if you guys want to know like specific book titles, I mentioned a couple in this video, go check out my blog post on Laura's Bookish Corner. The link to my blog will be in the description box, and I hope you guys find success with these books that will pull you out of your reading slump. If you have any surefire tips and tricks or book titles, put them in this video or put them on my blog post so we could all share the love, and I'll talk to you guys soon for another video.